everybody. It's a chilly day here in Ohio. Got the sun shining, which is kind of nice. Don't get that a whole lot here in early March most of the time. And it's, I don't know, 20 degrees or something like that out. The high for the day is 40, so it's gonna get better as things go along. But we have ourselves a nice little tree project today, and I'm excited to take you along with us. Let me show you what we got going on. Up front here, Bo and Al are getting the plywood off the truck and laying things out. We've got to build a plywood highway to the back of this property. Bo's also got a pallet full of slat tracks here, which I think is going to be super helpful today. We'll see how those work out. Back around here on this side of the house, we got the chipper backed in here and the chip truck. Ooh, we also got new little battery saw to play with today. We're going to see how well this thing does. Got this thing just in case it doesn't want to perform, but I'll be interested to see how this goes. And then this here, right here, is our tree for today. Nothing crazy. Nice little phototropic oak tree. It's a pin oak. It's growing up over this yew or taxus or whatever you want to call one of these things. So that makes it a little bit of a challenge because those aren't super strong and we don't want to destroy it by dropping limbs on it. So this thing did grow in tandem with a tree that used to be behind this little garage structure here. And so when it grew with that tree, it grew reaching this direction for sunlight. So you can see most of the tree mass is out this way. And if we come over to this side of the tree, here you can see there aren't really a whole lot of limbs on this side at all, which is nice. It gives us a nice, easy climbing route to the top of the tree. But it's a pain because most of these limbs are hanging away from us and hanging out over that taxus. So we're gonna set up something called the GRCS on the bottom of the tree. It stands for a Good Rigging Control System. It was invented by Greg Good. It's also just a really good system, so that's kind of ironic. But we're gonna strap that on here. It's got a winch on it, and we're gonna run a rope from that winch up to a pulley all the way on the top of the tree, and then down to the tips of these limbs. I'll tie the ropes on out there. I'll make a cut back here, and then we'll stand these limbs up with the winch, because the winch can pull on that rope for us. And that'll lift these limbs up and away from this taxus bush or tree or whatever it is. So it's a little more complex than just a regular chop and drop situation, but that's kind of the thing that I like about it. It's not something that you get to do every day, and it's a little more fun. Now, as you can see here, our tree is down in this part of the yard, and there's this small stone wall that goes all the way around this upper part of the yard where the driveway is. We got this little concrete ramp, but that's not big enough ramp to get the machine up and down to get these big pieces of wood in and out. So the wood's got to go on this path on the yard all the way around and out the front of the house on this side of the house. All right, we got all our climbing gear back here. We got our winch mount on the tree, and I'm about to stomp my way up there. Let me show you how this thing works real quick. The way this works is we hang a pulley way up in the top of the tree. We put a rope through the pulley so one end hangs down, and we tie that onto a branch up in the tree. The other end comes down to this winch here, and this winch we can wrap the rope around a bunch. And when we put a special handle in here, depending on which way we turn the handle, it turns the drum at 2 different speeds. Both directions of the handle turn the drum the same direction, but it gives us some mechanical advantage if we go backwards. So once we wrap the rope up on there and we turn that drum, that pulls on the rope, pulls on the branch, and that will lift some of these branches up off of this other taxus tree here. Alrighty, I climbed up to the top of the tree here. I got myself an anchor point set with the rescue ropes. That way, in case if I get hurt, Bo can come up and save me. Never had to use that, but if we ever do, we'll definitely be happy it's there. We got ourselves a rigging block set up here with our rope. So now we can go down there and start cutting branches off at the bottom of the tree. A lot of the branches I'll be able to cut off and just let fall that are kind of over this part of the tree. The ones we're going to have to rig with the rope are the ones that are over here. You can see them reaching out over that Taxus down there. We want to keep that thing as nice as we can. All right, let's see what this little electric saw can do. It does have a power button and a chain brake, so we make sure that the chain brake is back. Push the power button, we see the green light. There's a little bit of a delay, which I don't love, but it's not intolerable. Okay, we got a bunch of limbs dropped off, all the easy stuff off of this side of the tree here. Now, the stuff that's up high, we can just tie it next to where I make the cut and let the limbs flip over and lower them down. But to do that, we first have to get this lower stuff up out of the way. So we're gonna do that whole thing I was talking about with lifting the limbs up with the winch down. So I'm gonna swing out to the end of this limb, tie this rope onto it, and I'll show you how it's gonna go. Got to get out past the balance point here. This should do it. Tie it on. Now we'll swing back and we'll make our cut back there. And here we are, we can cut our limb off, lickety split. All right, go ahead and pull on that owl. There we go, there we go. Look at that coming right up out of there. Perfect, it's off. You can let it down now. Very good, very good. Right back into the Taxus, but that's okay. Now that one wasn't super smooth just because there was a lot for that branch to get tangled on, but that's the same principle that we're going to use for a lot of those lower branches over top of this Taxus tree. Alrighty, go ahead and lift. Okay, you can go ahead and let that down now. upper part of the tree here now, and because we're high enough over our taxus, and because we got a lot of those lower limbs out of the way, it's really easy to just tie the rope on close to the cut and flip them over. It's just so much easier to be able to tie them close down here rather than have to go all the way out to the top of the limb up there somewhere. There we go. Yeah, is it gonna go? Is it gonna go? Yeah, it's gonna go. Very nice. And the guy that's holding the rope down there, what he does is he lets the rope slide through his hands just a little bit, so that way when that piece breaks off, it doesn't jerk on the rope too much and create too big of a force that would break the ropes or break the tree or something like that. Alright, our next branch here has kind of got stuff up above it, so we can't really lift it, and it's too big and long, so that way if we just swing it down, it would hit that taxus. So we're gonna slide it out of here sideways. I got my notch made on the side here, and make my back cut right here. This thing will swing around real nice. Kind of tight. We got one bar left in the battery, so hopefully it'll do it. There we go. Real nice, real nice. Perfect. All right, you can go ahead and let that down now, Al. I'm gonna go down and rig out these couple small branches down here, and then we'll come back up and we'll rig out some bigger ones. These things will be a little bit more exciting because they're pretty long and pretty heavy. On this limb here, I need it to go sideways and I would like it to go up. So I'm going to make my cuts at an angle, and they're going to encourage it to do exactly that. Alrighty, go ahead and lift on that, Al. Yeah, there we go. Keep going, keep going. You can stop now, very nice. Alrighty, now this limb is really big and standing upright, and if I tie it on down there and flip it over like we did with some other limbs, the top would drag into that taxus tree and really tear it up, and it would get stuck. So we don't want to do that. So we got the rope tied up in it here, and we're gonna use the winch down there to pull this towards our pulley over there. This limb doesn't have very far to stand up because it's already fairly vertical, but we want to kind of get some of the rope distance between the pulley and the branch shortened, so that way when it comes off of the cut down there, it comes off smooth and doesn't come off super violent. So got everything all set up. Let me go down there and make the cut. This limb is really heavy. It's probably the heaviest limb we've rigged out today, and so it's important that it doesn't swing around super hard and shock our rigging system. That's why it's valuable to get extra rope between the branch and the block out of the system. All right, we got our notch aimed directly at our rigging spar, so that way that's the direction this branch will move once we cut up to our hinge. Alrighty, we'll have our ground man go ahead and pull on that now. There we go, looking good. Keep going, keep going. Keep going. Keep going, and stop there. So that's perfect. We got where our branch is tied almost directly underneath our rigging point up there, which is excellent because that means it's gonna not swing around as much as it possibly could. The center of gravity still isn't under the rigging point, so it's gonna swing a little bit, but we've definitely reduced the swing quite a bit. All right, that's all the way off. Still just sitting there. Go ahead and pull a little bit more, Al. Yep, keep going. Yep, all right, there it is. Nice and gentle. You can come down with it now. It's hanging up underneath that block pretty well. Take the rope out of the ferrule, out of the pigtail there. Yep, go ahead and lift now with the drill. Alrighty, it's off. Go ahead and let that down then at your leisure. That was the last big branch on this tree. Now I gotta go out and rig this side down, rig this wood out, and then rig this side down. All we got now is big wood on this side, so we got the rope tied up there, make it cut down here, and we'll swing that around and lower it gently to the ground. Sure as I can be. You can go ahead and pull off now. Will. Stop. Stop. Let me go ahead and cut the rest of the way off here. Okay, go ahead and lift again. There it is. All right, you can lower that down whenever you're ready. I'll get the wood to flop. I don't think any of the other electric top panel saws in the market would have been making that cut. That's pretty impressive for that little thing. It didn't like it, to be clear, but it still did it. Alrighty folks, now we're in the remaining top of the tree. We just made that big old cut down there, and all we've got left is what we've got our rigging stuff on and our climbing stuff on. So I've got the rope tied above my cut, and I've got the pulley below my cut, so that way this piece will fall. The pulley will catch it from the highest point of the tree that will still be here after I make the cut. Here we go. Very nice, Al. That was great. All right, here we go. We got to do the exact same thing with the wood now. Very nice. Here we go. That was good. That was real good. Here we go. That was a really good one. Well, that big piece of wood was a little too big for our little rope here, and we glazed the rope, which that's okay. I knew that was a risk. This rope is ready for retirement anyway, and so maybe that'll be the final straw for it. But definitely about the biggest thing we want to do on a rope that size. Alrighty, now we just got this big old trunk wood remaining here. We don't have permission to use the neighbor's yard, so we can't tip it over that way. Everything has to go this way. So I'm gonna make a bunch of slanted cuts here, and this whole piece is gonna slide off one at a time, one at a time, one at a time. There is some old abandoned slab concrete down there that we need to avoid. So we kind of need to get it right into this area here, and we got ourselves a buffer log to keep things from rolling into the building over there, which we shouldn't even have an issue with that, but just in case, it's there. So let's get started. It is worth mentioning that cutting on an angle is about the slowest way to cut a piece of wood with a chainsaw, because of the grain structure and the way that the cutters cut. They are made to cut directly across, so cutting on an angle goes much slower, but that's just part of how this goes. It is what it is. Well, my camera died when that thing was falling off, and so we didn't catch that. I'll make sure I get a good snapshot of this one coming off of here though. Well, folks, there's a stump. We got everything cleaned up, all spick and span, everything wrapped up, driveway all cleaned up, shipper loaded up, everything's ready to go. Actually, guys, there's one more thing I want to talk to you about real quick. After using that Echo battery saw for the first time today, I wanted to give you just some initial thoughts in comparison to the Milwaukee. I've been using this Milwaukee for quite some time now. It's a great electric saw. I love it as far as electric saws go. It's probably my favorite and probably the one I'd recommend if people ask, because it's just the best performance per dollar, I think. The best value saw, best value electric saw out there, at least from my experience. This thing is a whole different bird. I felt kind of cheap and almost toyish because it's so light when I pulled it out of the package, and I honestly didn't have great faith in it just from putting it together out of the box. But after using it, I was pleasantly surprised. It is a lot lighter. It's way easier to move to you know, whip around in the tree and whatnot. The on-off switch is kind of a bummer, but you can get used to that. It's not the end of the world. The Milwaukee, for example, in comparison, does not have an on-off switch. The chain brake is the on-off switch, and so that makes things simpler. One less step. You don't have to hit the on button every time for the Echo, but it does time out occasionally, and so then you got to hit it, and you're not prepared to have to press it, and it just takes a second to figure out where you're at. This does sometimes have a little bit of throttle delay on the trigger. Not always, but sometimes. I do really like this oil fill cap. It's got a little flip-out lever that gives you a little extra leverage to kind of loosen and tighten it with, so that it feels pretty sturdy. I think you'd be hard pressed to break it off unless you were trying. This saw does run a fairly high chain speed, which means when you really lean into it, it's kind of easy to stall the chain. That's not necessarily a problem. It just means you got to get used to it. That's all that really means. I would say that this saw performed much better than I anticipated, but it's just like any other electric saw with a high chain speed. It doesn't like big wood. I cut a bunch of branches off the tree with this thing that were probably 4 and 5 inches in diameter, and it handled those, but I probably wouldn't want to use it for anything much bigger than that on a regular basis. So for that kind of thing, it's great. You saw I hogged off some ridiculously large stuff with this thing. It didn't like it, but it will do it. This thing, I don't think it'll do it. But on the flip side, this thing's also a lot heavier. So, you know, it kind of is what it is. I think it'd be pretty fair to say that this little Echo is to the Milwaukee like the Echo 2511 is to a Steel 201. It's just, it's smaller, it's lighter, it's less powerful, but it's not as much work to carry around in a tree because it's lighter. This saw will do more, it's bigger, it's badder, you can push it harder, but it's a lot heavier and it's more weight to drag around. I do have a scale here, so I'm going to weigh both of them quick just to kind of give you a comparison of where they're at. This saw is weighing in right at 11.2 pounds. That's with a full reservoir of oil and an 8 amp hour battery. I just topped it off for comparison's sake. This saw here weighs in right at 7.3, also with a full oil reservoir and whatever size battery this is. It only comes with one battery. I don't know if they offer other sizes or not. I'll also add that this does have a really nice transparent reservoir, whereas this saw just has kind of a transparent window right there below the cap. It's good enough. You can kind of see when there's, you know, when you're getting low, but it's not as good as this thing is. This might even have a low oil sensor because it wouldn't let me run it. I tried to fiddle with it before I put oil in it. It wouldn't turn, so not 100% sure on that, but that's a cool feature if it does have it. I did notice that with 20 weight oil in the cold, it went through almost a full reservoir as it killed the battery. This thing has a really big reservoir on it. You can go through a couple batteries before you have to top off the reservoir. I see this saw listed for anywhere from $320 to like $650. Don't know why there's such a large disparity in pricing on the internet. This thing can come in all sorts of kits, as you know, as cheap as just the saw with no battery for like $329, all the way up to $700 or $800 with two batteries and a charger and all of that. So it all depends on what you already have, how much this saw will cost you. I think both are probably good products. I can speak for the longevity of this thing. I've been running it for quite a while and it's kept up well. This, just tried it today. You saw my first experience with it. Both of these saws come with really stupid safety chains on them that I don't like. Once you get the bar tip buried in some wood, they just won't cut, and it's horrible. I'm keeping my eye out for full chisel logger chain that doesn't have the extra safety rakers and anti-kickback components for the tip, but I haven't found anything. I think that would really change the game for this saw and really make it perform better. I'm sure it would do the same for this. Thanks so much for listening to me ramble on about these chainsaws. If you have any questions, put them in the comments. I'll definitely do my best to answer them for you.